Okay, so we're going to start the presentation. Welcome, gentlemen, to our February 2023 St. Paul Speaker Series events. Our guest today is Mr. Gift Bwembya, who's the Principal Gender Officer in the Department of Gender Rights Protection. And he's also a St. Paul's alumni from, I forget the time, but you're gonna introduce yourself, Mr. Bwembya. So without much ado, we'll give you the floor and just let me know when to move the slides. Please take it away.
Okay, thank you so much. Good afternoon, everyone.
Afternoon.
Okay, so like introduced before, my name is Gift Bwembya. I'm the Principal Gender Officer under Gender Division, which is the former Ministry of Gender in Zambia. I sit in the Department of Gender Rights Protection, and I also sit on the Government Republic of Zambia and United Nations Joint Program, which is the GRZ UN Joint Program on gender-based violence response and prevention. So I was in Rugambwa House from 2008 to 2011. I left St. Paul's 2011 when I was in grade 11 by then. Okay, so I don't know if others can do the introduction or I go ahead and start the presentation.
Oh, they can. It's up to you. You're the boss. Tell them what you want to do.
Okay, maybe we can do our introductions. Seeing that we are very few, we can do quickly our introductions.
I agree. I'll start with myself. So my name is Msonda Kapatamoyo. I was in Wanga I graduated, or rather Penta, 1989. I was also the best resident prefect for that year. That's what everybody tells me.
That's wonderful.
All right. We can go in any order. My name is Danny Liswani. So I was in Wanga House with Kapatamoyo. It was my junior. I graduated. I'm not graduated. I'm Penta 86. So I think I'm one of the oldest on this. From this list, I don't see anybody that came before me. I'm based here in Canada. I've lived here for quite a number of years. I teach here. I'm a professor here.
Okay, that's wonderful.
I'll go next. My name is Chilima Karima. I was also in Wanga House, Penta 1996. I never made it to a prefect. I think I was a house captain and the TV operator. And I'm based in Tennessee, the US right now. Thank you.
Chalwem Sosha. I'm a proud product of the great Clement House, Penta 95. I was also chief librarian during my tenure at St. Paul's. In addition to other duties, TV operator. I was fired from being a class monitor by Mr. Chewe because I was leading the noise-making group. So that's a different side note. But I'm currently working as a mining engineer and based in Las Vegas, Nevada in the US. I've been here for a good number of years. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Lumba Maonwat. I'm Penta 89 with Kapatamoyo. I think I would end there. Why are you laughing?
No, Abstabo Hajiboya, Clement House. I was there from 84 to 88. I remember Professor Luswani so very well. I think he's the oldest. I thought I was the oldest on this group. Right now, I'm a retiree. Thank you.
Dear all, I am Victor Malambutlao, resident prefect, former obviously, of Rugambwa House in Penta 94. I reside in Lusaka at the moment and practicing law there. Thank you.
Good day, everyone. My name is Moses Bwembya, painter, 1996, Champagne House, vice house captain, and that year I was awarded best prefect. I am based in Lusaka doing personal business. Thank you.
Best prefect. Who voted for you for that? Did we have those nominations in our time, Kapatama? As best prefect?
Yeah, yes, we did.
We did, eh?
And you'd get another badge. You know those rectangular badges that we used to have?
Oh.
Yeah, they'll give another one.
So that was the teachers that used to nominate students, eh?
Yes.
I can't remember that.
For Moses, the election was rigged.
It was rigged, eh?
Yes. Stuffing of ballot was taking place.
I saw Medarido join here. Medarido, we're actually doing introductions. For the benefit of Mr. Bwembya, introduce yourself.
Good afternoon, Professor. Good afternoon, Mr. Bwembya. How are you?
Fine, thank you, sir. Good afternoon to you too.
I'm good, thanks. My name is Medarido Makombe, painter 93.
Good to have you on the platform, sir.
And I was in the famous house of Champagne where Professor says there were some ghosts, the lady ghosts.
There was a lady ghost in that place, man. We win one.
At least Champagne was the famous house, but the best when it comes to sports was Rugambwa, my favorite.
Everybody is saying the best where they lived, so leave it there, Mr. Bwembya. Thanks a lot.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I believe we have all concluded introducing ourselves. Maybe we can move on. Okay, sir, we can go to the next slide. So hopefully I can keep this presentation within 40 minutes. I'll try and browse through, though it's a bit bulky. So like I mentioned, I'm coming from the Gender Division, which is the Ministry of Gender here in Lusaka at HQ. We are mandated to look at gender issues where we promote women's and girls' rights, and also ensuring that there is promotion of gender equality across the country. So we look at various issues ranging from GBV issues, gender mainstreaming, and empowerment. So I'll focus so much on gender-based violence being my specialization. Then we'll see, like it, you can see from the outline, we'll look at what is GBV. I won't take it for granted that we all know what gender-based violence is. Then we'll also look at the forms of gender-based violence. We'll look at the root causes. What are some of the root causes and contributing factors of gender-based violence? We'll look at the consequences of GBV. What are some of the gender norms that perpetuate GBV? Sites for GBV, where can GBV take place? Do we have specific places where GBV can occur? Then we'll look at the referral pathways. What is the referral pathway? How is it supposed to be done? Then we'll look at what are some of the strategies that the government of Zambia through the Gender Division now that we have put in place to address gender-based violence across the country, and also what are some of the mechanisms, then I'll be able to conclude. So gender-based violence is simply a violation of human rights, and which is a threat to human beings, both social-wise and health-wise, and also when it comes to issues to do with protection. then gender-based violence has a long-lasting adverse consequences, especially towards women when it comes to their reproductive health, such as unwanted pregnancies, pregnancy complications, maternal death, STDs like HIV and AIDS. Then the intimidation and male dominance within the family or within the community, which is exacerbated by gender-based violence. It hinders women, mostly women, from enjoying their sexual reproductive health rights. I think you can agree with me that most women fear to go and access health information or maybe access health services, especially pertaining to family planning and contraceptives, because of some intimidation that comes from men, especially husbands. They'll tell them, if you are using family planning, it means you are committing adultery outside this marriage. So most women will fear to go and access such services for fear of being chased away from their marriages. So gender-based violence is an umbrella term for any harmful act that is perpetrated against a person's will, and that is based on socially ascribed or gender differences between males and females. So we must understand that there are two terms that we really misuse. There is an aspect of gender and also an aspect of sex. So when we talk about sex, initially we're talking about the biological determinant between a man and a woman, or what are some of the things that a woman can do that a man does not do. For example, we're talking about a man impregnating a woman and a woman giving birth. Those are some of the sexual determinants that we have as human beings. But when it comes to gender issues, we are looking at issues or things that have been ascribed or constructed by the society, or these are roles or rules that the society, as people, make in our society, which can be changed over time and depends from culture to culture or society to society. So gender-based violence includes the acts that inflict physical, sexual, mental harm or suffering, threats such as coercion and other deprivations of liberty. These acts can occur either in public spheres or in private spheres. So in Zambia, it is now a worry thing, looking at the rise in the number of cases that are happening in the country, and also it has become a worrisome thing to note that in the past, we used to focus so much on protecting women and leaving out men. But now we've realized that men also have become vulnerable to issues of gender-based violence. A lot of us, even here on the platform, if we are to testify, you'll find that 1 out of 10 has been abused, not only physically, but maybe economically, emotionally by the wife. So it has become a worrisome thing that we've seen the rising number of men being victims of gender-based violence in our country. So in the recent past, we saw Zambia, Zambia witnessed a significant shift in issues of gender-based violence, where women found themselves inflicting emotional or physical pain on men. I think we've heard of so many women that have killed their husbands, or they have killed their boyfriends just over simple issues. So intimate partner violence has come on the rise in this country. So this picture surely tells us that the rate at which women are becoming perpetrators of GBV is seriously something that the public should be of concern. We know in the past, we only used to know that it's only men that would perpetrate gender-based violence, but women have also joined. Others will give you reasons to say, because because we focus so much on promoting gender equality, which is promoting women's rights and forgetting the men's rights. Others may be right in that way because men organizations. So you find that if men and boys are left out, you find that they won't be able to learn, or they won't be able to refrain themselves from these acts of gender-based violence. So what are some of the forms of GBV? So there are a good number of forms of GBV, but we're going to focus on 5, which are the major. We talk about sexual violence, we talk about physical violence, economic violence, psychological or emotional violence, and also HTP, which is harmful traditional practices. And a very good example of harmful traditional practices are child marriages and other initiation ceremonies that we have in different cultures. For example, we have in the western part of Zambia, we have what we call the Mwaskenge, where young girls aged 9, 10, 11, 12 are taken to a hiding place where they are taught how to take care of a man, instead of being taught about hygiene or being taught about how they can protect themselves or abstain from sexual acts, but they're being taught on how to satisfy a man or take care of a man. So you find that this practice, when they are taken out to the public, they have no interest to go back to school because they feel they are not at the same level with the other girls that they are going to find out thereafter they are trained in such acts. So they want to experiment, they want to test. And all of us can testify that even when we're in secondary school, there are certain things, if at home they are so strictly in terms of your movements or what you can do, when you go to school, you get influenced with a certain group that is doing a certain thing, and you want to experiment. What is it that my friends are feeling? What is the sweet thing that they are getting from this act? So the following are some of the gender-based violent actions that are accepted by culture in Zambia. So some cultures in Zambia, they think, or let me say, they have taken child marriage as something that is normal. As long as the child reaches puberty, it is something that is normal and the child can get married. Then there are issues to do with rape, and those who have read our policies or our laws in Zambia, you find that we have no issues to do with marital rape. So this has become the major concern, especially to couples that are married, because there are certain aspects that are coming out from married couples. So we don't have a lot to do with marital rape, and how it can be investigated, it is very difficult, because others will claim, no, what is the use of marriage? What is the purpose of marriage if you are saying there is marital rape? So there is also an aspect of incest. I think if Mr. Kapatamoy, I don't know if you are from the Eastern or where, but I think those from the Eastern will agree with me to say there is some saying to say, Wadiaka Kalie Mulandu. So we have such proverbs that are really bringing about or perpetuating gender-based violence in our country. We also have female infanticide, which is killing of the babies, female babies, due to preference. I think you agree with me that the time we were growing up, you find that each family had a preference of what kind of a child to have. And mostly in our society, you would prefer to have a boy child than a girl child, because a boy child will easily be taken to school, but a girl child, you feel taking a girl child to school is a sheer waste of time, sheer waste of resources, and all a girl child can do is kitchen chores. So that once they learn how to do those chores, they are they are ready for marriage. So those are some of the actions. So we can, yes. So now we continue looking at these 4 forms of GBV. You can click again, sir. So look at physical. If you look at physical, we have examples of physical violence, which is physical assault, trafficking, slavery, infanticide, honor killing, and also miming. Next. So under emotional, we have humiliation, confinement, isolation, intimidation, threats, social exclusion, ostracism, that which is based on sexual orientation. Then under sexual, we have forced marriage, which can also be called child marriage, which also falls under HTP, under harmful traditional practices. We have sexual exploitation or forced prostitution, survival sex, rape and marital rape. Though, like I explained earlier, in Zambia, we don't have such cases as marital rape because you won't be able to give evidence in court. But our other countries within Africa, and I think across the world, they have laws to do with marital rape. So we have child sexual abuse, defilement, and incest. Under economic, we have discrimination or denial of opportunities, be at home, be at workplace, be at church, anywhere. We have forced marriage or early marriage, because here why early marriage qualifies here. If a child is taken early into marriage, automatically you have denied that child the right to education. Automatically it means you've denied that child access to economic issues where they can enjoy their economic rights, maybe to own business or maybe to find a job and the like. Then we have denial of education for women and children. So those are some of the examples under the forms of gender-based violence. Okay, so someone may ask a question. Why does gender division focus so much on helping women and girls? So we all know that gender-based violence can happen to anyone, regardless of your age, regardless of your gender, regardless of your ethnic group, regardless of your religion. It can happen to anyone. Be it male or female, it can happen to anyone. But we focus so much on women and girls because we know that this is the most vulnerable group of people that we have in the society. Women and girls are at more risk of experiencing gender-based violence. But we are not saying men and boys cannot experience GBV. They can experience GBV, but at a minimal pace. So the next one is, thank you. The next one is simply giving the examples of the forms of gender-based violence, which I talked about. It is a GBV tree. So we can see that there is physical there is emotional, sexual, harmful traditional practices, and economic abuse. So those are the 5 major types of violence that we have under the GBV tree. So you can see down there, what are the root causes? We have traditional gender roles, we have cultural practices, we have women's low status, we have gender inequalities down there. Then you find the examples upwards there under the leaves, like I mentioned in the previous slide. Next, please. So you'll be able to see from this table that on our left side, we have the root causes, which includes power imbalance. It may be in a home, it may be at a workplace or wherever. Especially, we know that someone who's got more power over the other has an advantage of perpetrating gender-based violence towards the other. It may be someone having been in an high authority or having that authority in terms of maybe this is your boss at work, because he or she has that authority. They may try to ask to sleep with you, especially for our women, if we have any women on the platform. That boss, because they have told you you need to be promoted, but for you to get that promotion, you need to sleep with your boss. So that person is using the authority that they have, which qualifies under power imbalances. Then we have gender inequalities and disregard for human rights. So on the other side, you find the contributing factors, which are alcohol, drugs, boredom. We have retaliation. Then under gender inequalities, we have camp layout, access to services. I think you remember earlier I mentioned about low access to health services by women because of what the society will label them or what the husbands will label them. Then disregard for human rights, we have impunity, representation, and participation. Next. So when gender-based violence is perpetrated towards a person, they are likely to face certain consequences, which may be psychological health consequences, maybe physical health consequences, or maybe social or economic consequences. So under physical consequences, these may be physical injuries. They may contract HIV and AIDS or other STIs, unwanted pregnancies, unsafe abortion, fistula, even cause death. Then under psychological, we have depression. So someone may go into a depression. Someone may have that fear of, for instance, if this is a child that has been defiled and she has been threatened by the defiler to say, no, if you tell anyone, I'll kill you, I'll shoot you, I'll do something bad to you. You find that this child would develop that fear towards that person, not only towards that person, but this child would develop fear to be near men because she will think all men are just like that. And men, women, or ladies have grown up with that such that even in their old ages, they fear to be next to men because of what happened to them when they were young. Then we have self-blame, anxiety, mental illness, suicidal thoughts or actions. Under social or economic consequences, we have a victim being blamed. There's stigmatization, the society rejecting the victim. There's that isolation, decreased earning capacity or contribution, especially when you look at a child who's a school-going child. In class, they were very active, they could contribute to any question, but now this person stops contributing or stops having interest in that subject or going to school. Then there's increased poverty, then risk of re-victimization. Okay, so before I can move on to another section, maybe I can allow some contributions or questions or concerns from just under a minute from people on the platform.
I have a question, Mr. Bwembya. Seeing how serious this issue is in Zambia, at what is it issues of gender-based violence incorporated in the curriculum, education curriculum? And if so, at what age are you starting to teach this subject? And then in addition to that, are educators trained to, or is there a policy to train educators to maybe identify the clues or signs of a child that is facing gender violence, and what is there a reporting mechanism or something that they can do once they identify that child? Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, sir. So the government has tried by all means to include these issues of GBV in the curriculum. But at the moment, I think you've seen what is trending. At the moment, we have an issue with the CSE, that is Comprehensive Sexual Education. I've not had time to read the document, but it has received quite negative responses from the public, the general public, looking at what is contained in the document and the age that is being taught what is contained in the document. So people feel, I think, it needs to be revised and see what language can be used in that document to suit the young ones, because I think CSE should be taught starting from grade 4 or grade 5, if not mistaken. But as gender division, we are trying by all means, as we go out to do what we call cultural resetting, to do with behavioral change with traditional leaders and religious leaders in chiefdoms across the country. We've tried to incorporate teachers in schools where we go, and we've tried to sensitize them to be observant and be careful on the pupils, because sometimes they may bring out that anger on a pupil to say, why has your performance gone down, without realizing what has made that pupil's performance to go down. So we've told them, when you see such kind of signs, please try by all means to get to the root of the matter. What is really happening with the child, with the pupil? If you cannot manage, there is a guidance and counseling teacher in that school. Let the guidance and counseling teacher take up the matter and see to find out what is causing that. And during the 16 days of activism last year, we had an opportunity with Natwampane under GIZ, funded by European Union, which sits under a gender division. We had an opportunity to launch a campaign called Are You Safe campaign at home, at school, and at work. So there were some guidelines that were given, especially Are You Safe at school. There were some guidelines that were given and wrote down for these teachers to be taking note of as they are teaching their pupils or interacting with their pupils, so that they are able to identify if there is any suspicion of gender-based violence being answered. I don't know if I've tried to respond to your questions.
No, that's good. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question, Mr. Bwembya.
Two more questions, Mr. Bwembya. Mr. Chlau, go first.
Okay.
Thank you very much for this opportunity. You know, Zambia recognizes statutory marriages and traditional marriages.
Yes, yes.
In the same vein, people choose to go to school or not. Polygamy is allowed in Zambia. So I was wondering why you appear to be condemning the choice of those people, say, who would want to marry off their children who are less than 16 years of age. And yet, that is their choice, and then as a country we recognize that. Why would we not let them marry off their children? And that goes on like that. That's a question that I have. I'll ask a few other questions later on. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much for that question. So we believe in having a society that is learned. We believe in having a society that can bring development to the country, because you are going to bear me witness that if you marry off a child who's still in school, especially at primary level, you agree with me that that child probably in that marriage will not have a say when it comes to budgeting or decision-making at household level. And worse more, if that girl child is married off to a man, for example, a man who's 40 years, who's 50 years, I'm sure you're going to agree with me to say a 50-year-old man has played here on earth, has done all whatever he could do with women as compared to a 12-year-old girl child. So you find that this 12-year-old girl child will not have a say in that marriage, hence putting that girl child at more risk of are experiencing gender-based violence. Apart from it being a child marriage issue, that child maybe will be sexually abused each and every time, because whenever she feels she's not ready to have sex, the man will say, I just have to sleep with you. The woman, the girl child will have no say. If the girl child says, oh, can I access contraceptives at a health facility? The man will refuse. It means you're sleeping around with it. Why should you go and access such services from the health facility? So we are looking at the implications of these young girls who are entering into marriage. And if that girl child goes into marriage, automatically you know that the education life is cut off. So who's going to be the next president? Who's going to be the next vice president? Who's going to be the next speaker of the National Assembly? Who's going to be the next, by the way, we have a female PS agenda. Who's going to be the next permanent secretary to run the country or to run a ministry? So those are some of the issues that we are looking at, because Bwembya say, imiti kula empanga. But if you cut down those trees, you don't expect to have a bush that will give you fruits or that will give you a great development in future. I don't know if I've tried to answer your question.
Yes, you have. Well, of course, I have a lot more questions, but let's proceed.
Thank you, sir.
Also, the question for you, Mr. Bwembya. Moses,
yeah.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bwembya. Before we completely forget about the question from the State Council there, I would just want to state that when somebody is married, it does not completely stop them from accessing education. I think there is a policy that allows people to get back to school once they have been delivered. And even as married people, they can still continue with their school. So that window is not completely closed. My is how does this matter of power balance come in? Zambia is a Christian nation, and I think the holy book that we all follow and read to guide our lives does not put power, in the hands of a man and a woman in a family setup in equal proportions. I think from what we know the Holy Book states is that a man is the head of the home and that a woman is supposed to submit. Now, if that is plotted, that is where the issue of gender-based violence emanates from. If a woman would like to position herself as equal to a man in terms of power in the home, there is a clashing there. So how do you take care of this teaching from the Holy Book as you promote, gender equality? Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you so much. That's a good point and good observation. I agree with you. If you read very well the Bible, you'll find that there's some sort of gender-based violence that occurred in the Bible. But that verse that talks about a man being the head of the house and the woman being submissive does not mean the woman is a slave in the household. So what I'm trying to say is today, many of us men have taken our women as slaves, as someone who should not have a say in the family or someone that should not take part in the decision-making at the household level, which we have seen this emanating even at national level where men, women, if they want to participate in these political spheres, they're intimidated. They're told, you're a woman, you cannot speak, you cannot do this, just stay away from this. So getting back to submission, being submissive and being the head of the house, what the Bible really means is you, a man being the head of the house, you should be the one that should be protecting that woman. You should be the one that should be encouraging that woman to do what is right. You should be the man that is leading and guiding that woman into the right path, or leading that woman into the presence of God. Not you laying your hands on that woman, not you picking up sharp things to be hitting that woman, not you making your woman to be a sex toy. No. And a woman being submissive to a man, it is all about the respect that she sees from a man. If a man does not give that respect, that love to a woman, you don't expect your woman to be submissive to you. So a woman should not be submissive because they are scared you're going to beat them, because they are scared you're going to end the marriage. No. A woman should be submissive to you because you're a loving and caring husband who's protecting her and who's guiding her into the right path. I don't know if my answer is.
Can I jump in a little bit? I don't need, I'm not trying to show us off the course of the topic, but since there's something that was mentioned by a State Council Victor, and also Moses, kind of hard for me to hold my tongue for a little bit. But I think the issue here that we are trying to ignore is the age of these girls, that you're trying to perpetuate that there's still an opportunity for them to further their education after getting married, having kids. I think honestly speaking, that opportunity is 2% to 0 in our current situation in Zambia. So I don't think that is that can even come on the table as an option of where these kids are being given options. I don't think there's any option at that point. We're forcing somebody to get married at a tender age. I mean, these programs are there, going back to school, these programs are there, but I think that opportunity for them to actually do something for their life each time they get in those early marriages, I think that opportunity closes down. And the other side, but also my question is, in December, I visited with a certain lady that's trying to open up an NGO. At first, I was very reluctant about it, but the more she talked, it kind of started making sense. And this one was more of, she was looking at the boy child. She's like, we talked a lot about the girl child and resources that are there, but we don't have a lot of resources or zero resources for the boy child to actually teach them to be men. And by that, she was describing it as respectable women in the community, people that will take up responsibility. Is there anything in your gender-based violence, I don't know whether it's an organization or movement that actually looks at the boy child?
Okay, thank you so much. Like I mentioned, we realized later on that we focus so much on women and girls. And now we thought we need to incorporate even men and boys so that we tell them what they are doing is not okay. And some of those that are victims of GBV can be free to report. So under the GRZ UN joint program, we involved an NGO called Zambia National Men's Network. So this is an NGO that is looking at boys and men, and it coaches boys into men, where they sensitize them and they give them platforms to talk to their fellow men or fellow boys to tell them about the dangers of gender-based violence. So we've involved Zambia National Men's Network, who are on the ground working with us as gender division. And not only that, Zambia Center for Communication Programs, commonly known as Kwatu, they are also on the ground. They do a similar program where they coach boys into men. So they talk to boys, they tell them the importance of keeping themselves safe, how they can protect themselves from other forms of abuse, how they should not treat women badly or girls badly. They are trained in different areas of life. They are also they also have a program called Is it sport in action, where sport is used as a form of sensitization through tournaments organized in these communities?
Okay, thank you so much. We ready to go to the slide?
Okay, thank you so much. We can proceed.
I think this was the next slide you're gonna go to.
Okay. Yes. Okay, so what are some of the gender norms that perpetuate gender-based violence? So these are some of the things that we have felt in Zambia across the country perpetuate gender-based violence. Number one, we look at sexual cleansing. In Bwembya, we call it ukupianika. There's an aspect of girls wear pink and boys wear maybe blue or black. Then pregnant women should not eat eggs. Men should be emotionally strong. Commonly saying men or boys don't cry. If you cry, then you're a weaker person. Women should be nurturing and caring, while men should be violent. Women must not talk in public because public is meant for men. There's a patriarchal system where a man takes dominance of whatever is in the society or in the community. Then there's a practice of child marriage in other areas of Zambia, which is bride testing. There is wife battering as a sign of love. Men wives, there's a research that was conducted. Men wives were testified that if my man does not beat me, it means he doesn't love me. So for him to show love to me, he must beat me. If he doesn't, then he has another woman outside marriage. So wife inheritance and sexual cleansing. I think we've heard of a certain case should be in Wapla province, where the young brother to this man who died went to stay with the wife to the elder brother who's late. And after that period, I think he was given 3 months. After that period, the wife to the late brother told him to say, okay, now this period is done. I think you can go back. So this young brother to the late husband asked the elders if he can continue staying with that woman and probably marry that woman, but the woman refused. So it is through the cleansing, the sexual cleansing that was done after the man died, that made this man fall in love with the brother's wife. So those are some of the things that are perpetuating gender-based violence. Also use of vulgar language, which is perpetuated by male dominance. Okay, next. Okay, so what are some of the sites for gender-based violence? So GBV can happen anywhere. It doesn't matter, it is in a private place, in a public place, be at work, be at home, be at school, be it in the vehicle, wherever we can think of. So violence against women occurs in many settings, be it the family, like I've mentioned, be it in school, university, be it in the street, in the political life, in state institutions, in prisons, churches, anywhere it can take place. So perpetrators can therefore be private persons, such as intimate partners or other family members, acquaintances, employers, co-workers, strangers, as well as state officials, such as the police officers, prison guards, or soldiers. While GBV occurs to women in all areas of life, the family is the place where women experience the most violence that we have in Zambia. Okay, next. So we're going to look at the referral pathway. So this is more like a chain of places or areas, organization that a survivor of GBV can go or should go, passing through different types of support or accessing different types of support and care. These may include a hospital or a health center, at the police station, organizations that are providing psychosocial counseling, or the legal aid groups or the courts. So if you talk about the hospitals here in Zambia, currently we have 64 one-stop centers. So these one-stop centers are based either at a hospital or at a health facility. So these one-stop centers are more like a shelter that is providing GBV services under one umbrella to cut on time wasting. So they provide services under one umbrella to cut on time wasting, wasting resources, and also to avoid the victim or the family of the victim to withdraw those cases. So there at the one-stop center, you find a medical doctor or a nurse or a clinical officer who's trained in these GBV issues. You find a counselor who's from the Ministry of Community Development and Social Services, or maybe from YWCA, which is Young Christian Women Association. And you also find a paralegal there from the Legal Aid Board. Okay, next. So I think you can see what I was trying to explain. So a one-stop center is a survivor-centered approach where a survivor is able to access all the 4 services available for the survivor, like I was explaining in the previous slide. So now there are cases where you don't have a one-stop center. So in areas where there's no one-stop center, the survivor can approach a police station if there's a police station, or if there's a health facility, or if there's end personnel from the social welfare who's trained in counseling, or end personnel who's trained in paralegal issues. But if they completely have no one-stop center and they have no people to provide these 4 services, in Zambia, we have what we call Lifeline Childline, where adults are able to call 933 and children are able to call 116. So these are free toll lines that we've provided to the community to call whenever they suspect any form of gender-based violence around their community, in their neighbors, or when a child or an adult is experiencing gender-based violence, but they feel shy to go to these services to go and report to any law enforcers. So they can call 933 as adults, then children 116, and the service providers will be able to attend to them. Currently, we don't have enough centers for Childline Lifeline across the country, but we are trying by all means that if we can have these centers in all 116 districts across the country. So the survivor receives immediate or medium-term support from these services I've talked about, but we can also provide longer-term support services, which are you support a survivor by going back to school or going back to the community. If it's going back to the community, look at what the survivor needs. Does the survivor need some form of empowerment where she or he can start a business? So we offer such kind of support services. Also livelihood support services, so that if this person who's a survivor, maybe they were abused because they are depending on this perpetrator who took advantage of them because of their vulnerability. So we support them in such a way that they can start up something to stop over depending on the person who is taking care of them. Okay, next. So this picture we are seeing, it is what we call the spider referral pathway. So a spider referral pathway, you're going to discover that it is a longer process of accessing services. Imagine, I believe all of us are familiar with Zambia and the districts. I'll use the districts, or maybe I can use Lusaka. So imagine this is a survivor or a victim who has been defiled here in Lusaka, and now wants to access services. And now you tell this survivor or victim of defilement to say, for you to access, maybe for us to determine that really this is defilement, the only doctor who's trained in GBV issues is found in Kafue. So imagine the time that this person will spend from Lusaka to Kafue to access medical support, and also the resources. Looking at our economy today, from Lusaka to Kafue, it's now about 45 kwacha, just one way. Then from there, if that survivor will manage to go to Kafue, then Kafue there, they say, okay, we've provided the medical support, but you need counseling so that you don't get into that trauma. So now you say, oh, the counselor, the only trained counselor on GBV is found in Kabwe. So that victim has to move from Kafue to Kabwe to access counseling services. Or now we need to start the prosecution process, and the paralegal that can help you is found in Chongwe. That person has to come all the way from Kabwe to Chongwe. So look at from Lusaka, Kafue, Kabwe, Chongwe, just to access these 4 services to help the victim. So you find that if this victim has no resources to move to these places, the victim will withdraw the case and won't be able to access these services. So what are you doing? You're not helping the victim. You're just making the situation to worsen, because this victim will still go back to the perpetrator without accessing any counseling services, or without helping this victim, looking at if she is over-dependent on the perpetrator. You need to provide shelter. This is where YWC and social welfare under community development comes in, but we still as gender division monitor the shelters. So maybe this victim will need a shelter. But now if this victim has not accessed these services, how are you going to know that there is a victim who needs access to shelter? So the victim will stay back home and continue being abused by the perpetrator. If they don't have money, they cannot access the services, looking at this, the distances, and also it is time consuming. So this is why the referral pathway has been made in a simpler way by having one-stop centers. Let me also make mention that apart from the one-stop centers based in hospitals or health facilities, we are still establishing, there are still there are village-led one-stop centers that we've established in chiefdoms, in some chiefdoms. A good example is the Chamka village-led one-stop center in Chief Chamka there in Chisamba. So these village-led one-stop centers are simply there to provide first aid to a GBV victim, not really to provide all these 4 services that I talked about under the hospital-based one-stop centers, no. But to provide first aid to the victim in a village, in a chiefdom. So we've developed some, and some have been built, and we hope that almost all the chiefdoms can have access to, can have these structures of village-led one-stop centers. Okay, next. So quickly, the strategies that we've tried to put in place as government to combat the incidences of gender-based violence, we've enacted the Anti-Gender-Based Violence Act number 1 of 2011, which was enacted on 12th April. Then this act provides Ministry of Community Development to build shelters for GBV survivors under the Social Welfare Department. So these shelters are not meant to destroy families, but they act as a breather to help a survivor who may be in danger, as the ministry responsible looks at a permanent place for them. So in this case, the ministry is the Community Development and Social Welfare Ministry. So the act also provides for an establishment of a fund, which has not yet been actualized, which is to be anchored under the Ministry of Community Development and Social Services, to be used for material support for victims for their counseling and rehabilitation. Okay, next. So the Anti-Gender-Based Violence Act has been translated or simplified into 7 local languages across the country, which includes Nyanja, Bemba, Lunda, Kikaonde, Luvale, Tonga, and Silozi. So these are the major 7 languages that we have across the country, which the Anti-GBV Act has been translated into. And the time we go into the field to do cultural settings or other sensitizations, we usually distribute these materials. So a number of one-stop centers have been established across the country. I think I've mentioned about this. We have also managed to establish fast-track courts in 6 provinces, remaining with 4 provinces. So Choma, Kabwe, Chipata, Lusaka, Mongo, and Ndola. These are the centers for the fast-track courts that has been established with the help of the United Nations Joint Program, phase 1. So under phase 2, we are completing, obviously by June 2023, we'll be able to complete Kasama, Mansa, Chinsali, and Solwezi. So each province will have a fast-track court, and this fast-track court has been built in such a way that it is child-friendly. It is something that you as a person or a child is able to freely speak without being in eye contact with a perpetrator. So you find that there is a room where there is a screen, the child is alone there, and the perpetrator is in the main room where there are people and the like, and the child is able to speak freely and say whatever. If this is a child witness, they'll be able to speak whatever they have seen or they have heard. And this courtroom has been built in such a way that there are toys, there are books for children, they're able to play with the toys, they're able to read whatever books are there, so that they calm down as you prepare them to speak to the audience via the microphone, the speaker, which is put there in the room. So there has been the amendment of the Penal Code, which criminalizes gender-based violence and stiffens the penalty for child defilement, which has been moved from 15 years to life imprisonment. Then you need to note that the Child Code Bill was enacted last year. And also last year, October, we revised the Anti-Gender-Based Violence Act, so that there are some recommendations that were made in this act to criminalize certain offenses that have not been criminalized in the penal code related to gender-based violence. So there is village response systems to respond to gender-based violence, which have been developed, which I've explained. These are village-led one-stop centers. So we have in Chief Nyampande, in Chief Mazimawe, Chief Chanje, we have in Chief Chamuka. We'll be establishing one in Chief Unkula, Chinsali there. Just a number of chiefs, I think, who have these village-led one-stop centers. Okay, next. So what are some of the mechanisms in place? So government works with different faith-based organizations, traditional leaders on the ground, religious leaders, civil society organizations, and other cooperating or implementing partners to fight gender-based violence. Also, with support from different cooperating partners, we are working towards strengthening the victim support unit, which is under police, VSU under police, through capacity building programs in relation to the Anti-Gender-Based Violence Act, #1 of 2011, through the GRZ UN Joint Program on Gender-Based Violence, phase 2. So as I conclude, I wish to pledge that we encourage victims, especially our males, our fellow men. Let's encourage them to report these cases. A lot of us men do not report these cases when we are abused in our homes. But let us encourage our colleagues that whenever they are abused, they are able to report these cases and they'll be supported in whichever manner. So let them report to the police. And let's also encourage our neighbors, our families, colleagues, that whenever a GBV case occurs, let us not withdraw, but you see that justice is prevailed. Advise children not to be scared to report these incidences of gender-based violence against them, be at home, be at school, be at church, in their play areas, or any other place. Let us take advantage of the fast-track courts that we have established across the country. It is therefore incumbent upon all of us to utilize the existing environment to take concrete measures to end gender-based violence and be each other's keeper. And therefore, there is no justification for perpetrating gender-based violence. This is the end of my presentation. Thank you so much. I'll invite a few questions in a minute or so.
Thank you so much, Mr. Bwembya. That was a great presentation, and we have some questions already. So I'll go with Mr. Lumbama. Onward, please go ahead.
Thank you very much, the presenter and Mr. Bwembya. How are you?
Fine, thank you, sir. How are you?
I'm fine. I am a counselor, a marriage counselor, either from church and also in the community.
Yes.
And, realized that yes, the gender-based violence, but I think we are not really on the ground to work so that these cannot occur. I think people, I want to say on the women's side that they are so much excited because they feel they are protected. And even when they feel they need to be protected. And that's one thing which is even causing some marriages also to break. So we really need to come up with a way of handling some of these issues. And we also need to dig deeper where issues are concerned. But of course, there are items which I agree, it's totally because somebody is vulnerable. But some of them are caused because they're excited, they are protected. And in those issues, I think somewhere here, I have realized that people, because of the excitement, people are also protected. Who reports first is the one who is right. Even when you look at the whole issue, it's not like that. And two, we are Zambians also. And then we have traditions and cultures which are not really, some of them are good for training. Some of them are not good for training, especially like those days, yes, someone has to take over. But what I'm trying to say is, can we mix these things properly? Can we mix these things properly, the culture and everything properly? And I have felt, because I've gone to one of the chiefs, I don't want to mention, where the chief has completely taken out the traditional part. And these women are not really able to keep marriages and able to keep themselves so that economically they can go forward. So I think we have these things which I think even if we are receiving funding from the international, I think we really need to be Zambians also. That's one of the things that I would want to talk about. And well, it's a well presented issue, but there are some things which are not really incorporated very well, especially when I look at the people that I counsel. Even churches have gone wrong. You know, where they have wiped out everything and then women seem to have more power than the men. And whatever happens is gender-based violence, and it's more pronounced on the women's side than the men's side. Of course, there's also abuse there. Even the emotional torture for men is so great. I've experienced it, and the people, when they come for counseling, you wonder why the woman is acting like that. So can you really find out also in your protection of women, please, let's take in account of the culture. Let's take an account of what really Zambia is. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you. I agree with you. What you are saying, I've witnessed it even myself, where you go to a community, you ask them, do you know there is gender division? They'll tell you, we don't know what gender division is. Do you know the former Minister of Gender? They'll tell you, we've never heard of it. Then you start wondering, are we really doing a good job ourselves on the ground? So even from ourselves as gender division, former Minister of Gender, and being under the office of the President, I think there's a lot that we need to do for us to be visible in all the communities on the ground. And the good thing that we've started doing for us to be visible on the ground is, I think you can agree with me that since the start of this, by then it was a department, it came to be a ministry, it went as a division, a ministry, now a division. You agree with me that we've not had any representation at provincial and district level. But good news is starting October last year, we recruited some officers. So currently we have, each province has a provincial principal gender officer who is attached to the gender division, but at a provincial level. And soon, obviously, before the year ends, we might have 2 senior gender officers. At Lusaka, we already have 2 senior gender officers working on these gender issues. So we are hoping by the end of the year, we can have 2 officers for each province so that each province can have 3 officers at provincial level. Then we seek further Treasury Authority to put district gender officers in each district. If we continue, we are aiming that even at what level, we can have representation like the way Ministry of Community is and the way health is, even at what level they have people representing them. So that's one of the good news. And that we are trying to intensify our sensitizations, our activities in all the districts, reaching out to traditional leaders, religious leaders, and the community at large. And very soon we are rolling out an activity where we'll be reaching school-based pupils to do with school-related gender-based violence, which we've not done for the past years. So thank you so much, sir. Then concerning the chiefs, the traditions that they have, yes, currently we are targeting, looking at the negative norms, the negative cultural norms that we feel are not beneficial to the community or the chiefdom. You know, it's not all cultural norms that are bad. Some cultural norms are good. And they are the cultural norms that we need to enhance in these chiefdoms that we have across the country. But targeting the negative cultural norms I want to do with, especially looking at these initiation ceremonies of young girls into these marriage issues and the like, and so on. I think if you've been reading and hearing to news, not long ago, should be 2-3 months ago, in Eastern Province, we had an incident where this young girl was taken to a private room, was taught whatever she was taught, and the stage, on the final day, she was brought outside and the stage was put. She was made to dance on top of that stage, and men started bidding for the young girl. So whoever pays a higher amount gets the girl and does whatever he wants with the girl. If it's just one night stand, if it's just there and then, if it's marrying off the girl child, as long as he bids the highest. So it happened that this man had contributed the 10 kwacha there on the stage and grabbed the young girl and went to their nearby house and did whatever he could. And you know, it is surprising that the people around were just watching. Even one of the chief there was there. But when some NGOs went in, talked about it, how bad it was, later on this traditional leader had to apologize to the public, and we are trying to follow up the matter. We hear how far it has gone with the person who did that to a young girl. And there are some things that we want to change in this syllabus of the Alangizi. There are some things that we want to change which are not useful to the young girls. So those are some of the things that we're working on when it comes to negative cultural norms in Zambia.
Thank you, thank you. Mr. Bwembya, you had a question.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bwembya. Mine is for these young men. You know, I have witnessed, I have seen for myself where a young man is in a relationship with a young lady and both are still being kept by their parents and they only use the night to make themselves happy. And then usually it's a lady that is picked from her home and then the man takes her to his home. After the vaccination session, is dispatched back home. And if they are not lucky, on their way back, they find that the parents have discovered the girl was not there. And from there, the young man is forced to marry that young lady. Isn't that also gender-based violence from your position?
Yes, it is. It is gender-based violence because we are looking at these are young people, and you've mentioned they're still being kept, and meaning they are below 18 years old. So these, they cannot marry each other. By the way, now defilement age has been moved from 16 to 18, according to the 2022 Children's Code Bill. It is no longer at 16, but at 18. So anyone who sleeps with a child below 18 commits an offense of defilement. So it is a gender-based violence case, and we've come in as the division and other stakeholders on the ground, also to sensitize our parents on such matters, to say, can we, if such happens, sit the children down and tell them the right things to do, if they can wait until they are done with education, or at the right age, if they are able to wait.
Thank you, thank you. Are there any more questions? I have some questions on the wrap-up session.
I have a question, Paul.
Sure, go ahead.
And it's more of a question / comment based on some of the sentiments expressed. I think one of the things that we need to be very mindful of as a society is that every time we experience change, there's going to be resistance, and there's going to be a period of adjustment to that change. As men, I think sometimes when women are given these rights that so rightly belong to them, that empowers them and gives them the same footing as men, we feel threatened. And if you look at history, in every society where there's been a group oppressing another people, and then independence comes and that oppressed group now has the same rights as the oppressor will usually play victim, because now they have to deal with the fact that they have to recognize others as equals. And so I think initially as gender-based, rights are enshrined into the Constitution, and gender-based violence is basically tackled the way it should have been from the beginning. We should expect resistance, and we should expect men to push back, because I think it was Mr. Mbamos made a comment about, now women saying that they've got rights and that this and that, and I forget what his exact phrase was, but characterization was, but basically he was saying that now men feel powerless because women have rights. No, men should not feel powerless. Men should actually be comfortable with the fact that, this is happening, and rightly so, there's going to be a period of adjustment. But I think, the world has shown us that, this works in other places. And there's not a perfect place where, even in the United States, there are very serious cases of gender violence to this day, even in a country that claims to have rights, equal rights for everybody. So there are going to be individual cases where this is a very tough subject to swallow. But at the end of the day, I think we are better off as a country when we empower our women. And I'm not a political person, but I wish our government would do more to actually put women in positions of power, so that, we actualize these initiatives that we're doing instead of just having them on paper. Thank you.
Okay. No, thank you so much, sir. Thank you for that advice.
Awesome. So yeah, Mr. Gandize is just joining us at the very end of this thing. But Mr. Bwembya, I must say, this has been a very good presentation. This is a presentation that we've never had one like this at all. Just talking about individuals that are mostly vulnerable and that need help. And from just a quick comment is, I think that you guys have a good infrastructure in terms of, the outlines of the laws are there. The personnel is lacking, obviously, because you don't have a strong provincial representations, you don't have all the FTCs completed, and you don't have the one-stop referrals all completed. But if those things are done, I think this will be forefront. And I see that your division is at an intersection of economy, culture, religion, human rights, everything. And each of these are very big pillars in our country. You know, with the economy, for example, the women mostly are very dependent on men because they don't have as many jobs or job opportunities or business opportunities as men have. And if they were not, then you know, they would have more agency in you know, deciding a few things by themselves. And then culture also, I think, as you said, one, there's no consensus about what culture is really. I mean, because it's in a flux, it's always changing. You know, moving back and forth, and then you get some elders to explain some things, and based on their experience, they'll interpret it one way or the other. Religion is another big one. I think we heard that Zambia is a Christian country, and whether we act as Christians, I don't know. I mean, you look across the spectrum and you can be a judge. And the human rights, I mean, we have to agree, I think, that every person has the same human rights, you know, as everybody else. So if that is the threshold we're trying to meet, I think will be good. But I have some questions for you. Number one, is SMAS a real organization?
I don't know if my colleague, I'm with my colleague from Zambia National Men's Network. I don't know if she's able to respond to that. They're asking SMAS. But I try to explain it. As Stinge Men's Association of Zambia.
Yes.
Is it a real organization?
No.
What's her view? What's your colleague's view and about SMAGS?
SMAGS, the Stingy Men's Association.
Yes.
No, I think it's just a social media phrase, but no, it doesn't exist from our end.
I see. Okay.
Yes, we do call in suckers for men, but not from that point of view.
What do you guys do? What's your role in?
Okay, I think for us, because for instance, in the meeting, you've seriously pinpointed on women, adolescents, and the like, but we also consider the men and the boy child, because we don't have to forget that they are equally victims, and even the perpetrators do transform into being better men. So.
Well, that's a good service that you're providing. What organization is that does that?
And that's Zambia Men's Network.
Okay.
Zambia National Men's Network for Gender Development, because we still remember the women in our program.
Okay.
So yes, we're not side looking the women, we still have them in the program. So it's Zambia National Men's Network for Gender Development.
Oh, fantastic. Okay. Mr. Bwembya, you said that these activities are going to be happening at the ward level. I don't know if you're aware, and you also mentioned that you'll be looking for Treasury support. I don't know if you're aware that the Secretary of Treasury is actually St. Paul's guy.
Oh, I'm not aware of that. It's good news to hear that.
So you go talk to Estin Kulukusa and tell him to fast track your request.
No problem. We'll work on that so that we'll be very happy to have a representation at district and ward level.
Fantastic. One thing they're doing at the district is this CDF. And at this point, the CDF is very undefined in terms of what activities can happen. So if you guys are giving it a thought about getting some little grants from CDF to help with gender-based violence awareness or facilities or practices.
Okay, so we had the Women Economic Empowerment Program by then with the Ministry of Gender, but with the coming of the New Dawn government, this program was taken to local government under CDF. So I'm not so preview to what the guidelines stipulates, but I know one of my colleagues, she attended the review of those guidelines where they want to ensure that a lot of women are incorporated into accessing CDF. And if also the funding can be increased from the 10% allocated to women per district, if it can be increased maybe to 15 or 20%, which we're trying to fight, because CDF is not just the empowerment for women, but there's also youth empowerment. There are those cooperatives, clubs, there are a lot of things that are happening under CDF. But we are trying to see if women can be given more percentage to access CDF so that they can empower in their communities or constituencies.
Thank you. I'm really happy that you've put that under your radar. We have two questions from Mr. Lumbama. Go first and then Bwembya next.
Okay, yeah. Mine has just come because of the response Mr. Bwembya has given to say the under CDF women empowerment is there. I thought this whole thing of gender-based violence is supposed to really cover both genders, you know, females and males. There are males that have been, for example, assaulted, and out of their assault from their spouses, they have remained with permanent disability. I thought we should be talking of victims rather than women, gender-based victims, and not women only. I think that's what we need to do. I thought I should put it straight just there when it is being mentioned. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Really, that's a good observation, which we really need to put into consideration. But coming to our gender division, even if that empowerment program was taken to CDF, we have still remained with some empowerment program, because basically what we used to do in the past would give maybe funding to the women or maybe equipment, farming inputs, and the like. So we've still remained with a component of empowerment, women empowerment to our gender division. But what we've done as we are empowering those women, we've taught them to form cooperatives or clubs. And as they are forming those clubs or cooperatives, we've taught them a cooperative should have at least 70% women and 30% allocated to men. So if there are 10, we are believing that that club has got 3 men. So if there are 3 men involved in that club, we'll be able to empower that club. I think that's one thing that we've tried to do to incorporate men into the empowerment programs at the gender division. But at the CDF level, I've no idea how it is being done for those women being empowered.
Thank you. Mr. Lumbama, you had a question?
As Bwembya has mentioned, you see, when we are looking at certain things,
Network?
Just, but I can't hear him.
so
I think,
that's why
go ahead.
That's why I'm saying in other places like America, it's easy because the community itself is able to curb anything that thing at the top coming down. And that's one thing that even this gender violence has stayed for a long time and is still happening. Because on the ground, people are not really aware of it, and they don't want to incorporate this very well. So let's start from the chiefdom. I mean, from the basics. That's what I always look at. But when we look at in Zambia, the difference, why I'm talking like this is because Musosha came in. So there are two different places here. There in the community, everything is there. They can control, they can see the violence which is going on, and they're able to report. But here, the community, mostly 80% is not aware of and is not educated. So about the GBV. So can we come down, please, can we come down to the level where the community can curb a lot of these violences, a lot of these insecurities to girls, to boys, and all that? I think it will help. But if we are just to start from the top, because the funding is coming from there, I think we'll have, it will continue for some time. We want to, it cannot easily end, but we want the community to be involved. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, sir, for that great advice. We'll take note of that.
Awesome. So I don't know if there are any more questions, but you did mention something about that Imiti Kula Empanga. Before you went to St. Paul's, we had the headmaster, Mr. Chewe. And Mr. Chewe, at assembly every Monday, used to say a proverb. And this was one of his favorites, Imiti Kula Empanga. So I remember that from him, you know. Good old days in front of the administration block there.
No, that's nice to hear that.
Yes, yeah, that was our headmaster. So
just don't use those proverbs from the Eastern Province, like I want to share.
I think that was misapplied. That was misapplied because I think normally they use it for your own labor. Like if you worked, you know, in your field and you're eating your own maize, you know. So whoever told Mr. Bwembya that, they misapplied it and they're trying to get away with nonsense.
We can't trust these Chipata chops.
Yeah. And also, Mr. Bwembya, thanks for addressing the issue of the curriculum. I think the minister did issue a statement this week that the pages that were being shown around on social media were photoshopped. I think that's resolved now.
Yes, it is resolved now.
Resolved. Perfect. Okay. Do you have any more concluding remarks? And maybe your colleague, if she has also some concluding remarks, then we can.
Okay, from my side, I think let's just be on the lookout and also just to be on the ground, encourage people, especially men, like I mentioned. Most of us men are very shy to go out there and report these cases. And let's also encourage the community that when you go at the victim support unit, or let's say if you go at the police station, take note, if it's a GBV case, do not just end at the inquiries there to say, I've come to report a case. Tell them, I want to see someone from victim support unit so that those people are able to help you correctly and rightly, because those at victim support unit have been taught how to handle a GBV case. And now, if you look at people from the VSU, we've encouraged them not to be putting on uniform, because many people are very intimidated when they see a police officer in uniform. When you've not done anything wrong, when you see a police officer, as a petira checker, you'll be able to get scared, say maybe he's after me, or maybe there's something that he has seen wrong with me. But let's encourage them to say, let them talk to people from the victim support unit, and they'll find them. They are very friendly, and they will be able to attend to them. Free toll lines are there, 933 for adults and 166 for children. Let's encourage, and also let's also be vigilant with our children at home. Just to be reminded that our children are at more risk of facing these issues of child rape, sodomy, and other issues of GBV. Because the perpetrator mostly, it's someone that you know, it's someone who's close to you, it's someone in a home. It is not someone outside the home. It is a cousin, it is the biological father, the biological mother, the biological brother, it is the uncle, not even someone that is not known to the family, but someone who's very close to the family. So if we can encourage our children to be careful with who they play with or what they do with that person we leave them with. Let's also teach them, especially the young girls, the safe touch and the unsafe touch. Then we are good to go and develop our country for a free GBV country by 2030.
Thank you, thank you. Mr. Kamama, you had the last question.
Yeah, it just came, as he was concluding. There is a common practice amongst the women that if they are unhappy with the man, they punish the man by denying them conjugal rights. Is that gender-based violence, where a man is denied for months and probably even years? Thank you.
My colleague, there's a question.
Sorry, may you kindly repeat yourself?
There is a tendency among the ladies, married ladies, if they have a dispute with their man, they close the doors of Jerusalem. They deny them the conjugal rights for months, even years in some cases. Isn't that gender-based violence? Thank you.
Okay, like from our end, I'm representing the men's network, by the way. We don't necessarily categorize it as gender-based violence, but it's abuse as well in its own form. Because, okay, I should say that it's abuse. I don't mean to be religious and all, but when we look at it from the biblical side, it's the right of each partner to get what they have to get, especially from the marriage point of view. So when such happens, we do welcome men to come and talk about such an issue. And then, because from what we've noticed is that the women don't just wake up and decide to close the doors of Jerusalem. There's usually a reason to that. And then the worst part is when two people are together and they presume that the other party will read their minds. And that usually falls, that is usually in the case of women. For some reason, when we are with this person, we'll think, okay, this is our Superman and they're able to read our minds. So we do offer counseling, and it's not just counseling for the men, but even the women as well, so that we find out what the reasons are. Because she's abusing the other party in the process. And maybe at some point she felt abused by the other party. So, but one key component is that communication is important. So I wouldn't really categorize it as GBV, but it is also a form of abuse. I hope I answered your question.
I have heard the response. We have run out of time. I will leave it at this. Thank you.
She answered your question.
He's worried about the doors of Jerusalem.
Oh man, that was I've never heard that term before. So we'll do a poll on the forum. See how many people actually know that one.
I'm hearing for the first time too. Moses was always a character of bringing these words in. Not sure where he gets them from. No?
Wonderful, wonderful. So, Mr. Bwembya and your colleague, I didn't get a name, so we try to give attribution. You know, we have to give credit where it's due. This was an excellent presentation, you know, and like I said earlier, I think you guys you have your hands full, and you sort of have an infrastructure. But one thing we always tell people that present is this information has to come out to the larger society. One way to do it is to have a good website. So if you had a good website, with just one graphic, you know, the tree, the abuse tree that you put there, because that tree, it covered everything. It covered at the bottom of the roots, what's causing the silence, the top of the ground, you know, the different ways these abuses take place. If you can just have that tree on the website, that would be nice. And I don't know how you can get resources, because it seems like your division has been downgraded a little bit in terms of resource representation, but please have a proper communication network with the website.
No, thank you so much. We'll try by all means. We have a page for gender division and a website, and we're trying by all means to utilize our IT personnel so that we see how we can be marketed. So far, I think you can see from last year's 16 days of activism, we've tried by all means to put whatever vital information we can. Even this year's Women's Day, I think they have started displaying the important messages. And just to make mention that we are not going to do a traditional way of doing the International Women's Day, where every time we commemorate a national event here in Lusaka, do a march past at showgrounds and the like. We are taking this year's International Women's Day to Central Province, specifically Kabwe. That's why we're going to be commemorating this national event this year, 2023, under the theme, Digital Innovation and Technology for Gender Equality. Thank you so much.
Perfect, perfect. Well, thank you, Mr. Bwembya, and thank you to your colleague as well for, you know, this wonderful presentation and all the information that you've given us. And we wish you luck in making sure these programs go forward. When we were kids, I don't know if you were born then, but Keke was president, and he had this thing that said, if you educate a woman, you educate the nation. So you guys are kind of following in that track.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yes. Are there any last comments from the colleagues? If not, then we'll call this meeting a wrap. And it's Friday in Jakarta, so you guys can go and have a drink or do whatever you want to do.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, thank you. We'll be in touch. I'll send you the videos in like an hour.